Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Riffin with HB. Talk about old school and underrated bands and try to bring them to the masses. And this week we're doing the Allman Brothers Band. Appreciate you guys for being here. Um, we're gonna switch it up this time. I think I want to switch up the format. I've been thinking about this past couple shows, and I feel like reading through the Wikipedia is just it's informational, but it's too monotonous and it's too redundant. So to switch things up, I think we're just gonna read a couple notes, a couple little fun facts that I pulled from Wikipedia, but I'm in internet as well too. But I think for the most part, we're just gonna talk about the band, the fundamentals of the band. We're just gonna do the riffing with HB part. If you guys want to know about how many albums they sold and the top charts and stuff like that, just check out their Wikipedias. But I'm gonna switch it up and change it. And if you guys like the style change, let me know. If you don't, let me know. I think it'll be a little bit better this way. It'll be a little because it's just becoming where it's like too boring, too reedy. I think personally. But let me go know what you guys think, and we'll get into it. This way this time. That's one of the album covers for the Allman Brothers right here. And I have a couple other pictures along the way. Okay, another album covers too, as well. All right. Well, let's just start from the very beginning, shall we? We're in 1969. Kind of going back, we've been dancing around the early 2000s and 90s, 2000s. Even into the 2015, I think, for one of the bands, A Little Stranger. But now we're going back to 1969 with the Allman Brothers. That jam band kind of style we were doing early in Riffin with HB. We're kind of back to it, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that and why I think why I think people like it so much who are into music. But the Allman Brothers Band, they were an American rock band formed in Jacksonville, Florida in 1969. Brothers Dwayne, slide guitar and lead guitar, and Greg Allman on the vocals and keyboard. Founded with Dickie Betts on lead guitar and vocals, Barry Oakley on bass, Butch Trucks on drums, Johnny Jamo Johnson on drums, and subsequently based in Macon, Georgia, they incorporated elements of blues, jazz, and country into their music. So they're from Florida and Georgia. They kind of met up from different areas. I lost my place here, sorry. Incorporated elements of blues, jazz, and country into their music with live shows featured jam band style improvisation and instruments. We'll get into that here in just a bit. I got some fun facts about the Allman Brothers here. The key members and origins, as we just literally talked about, founded in Macon, Georgia, by brothers Dwayne on guitar and Greg Allman on vocals and organ, along with Dickie Betts on guitar, Barry Oakley on bass, drummers Butch Trucks, and Jamo Johnson. What a name. Well, let me go back and see his name again, guys. Johnny Jamo Johnson. That is a freaking rocker name if I ever seen one. Tragic similarities, guitarist Dwayne Allman died in a motorcycle accident on October 29th in 1971, unfortunately, and at the age of 24, which is pretty unique because almost 1 year later, almost exactly 1 year later, Barry, the bassist, Barry Oakley, oh my gosh, I'm jumping the words around here. Bassist Barry Oakley died in a similar motorcycle accident nearby, also at the age of 24. So they both died at the age of 24 motorcycle accidents, one year before the other, 1971 and then 1972 as well. Basically 1 year later. Ramblin' Man. Their biggest hit, Ramblin' Man, 1973, was written and sung by guitarist Dickie Betts, reaching number 2 on the charts. They were pioneers in combining 2 lead guitars and 2 drummers, creating a unique improvisational sound that hailed as fraternity of players that one transcended race and ego. And we're going to talk about all this. I like how they have these notes in here. These are all things that I wanted to bring up. Recorded in 1971, this album is considered one of the greatest live albums in rock history and was crucial in bringing them critical acclaim. After decades of reforming and personal changes, the band retired after a final show at the New York Beacon Theater on October 28th of 2014, exactly 43 years after Dwayne's death. um, and then they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. And even though they were a 60s, 70, technically 70s band, I guess, right? 1969 and so on, I feel like they kind of crafted the sound of the 90s. I want to talk about that a little bit here, just in case. Well, the Allman Brothers band released roughly 12 to 19 albums, depending on how live complication projects are counted. Um, we talked about this on the show a little bit. We haven't gone into depth about it, so let me do that really fast here. Depending if the band released studio albums or live albums, the number is going to change with the number of albums that they release. So in this case, it's 12 if you only count the studio albums. But if you count some of the live albums, it could be 17 to 19. I'm seeing some different reflections here. Various sources count 19 plus, including live with Keys albums, including the Allman Brothers Band 1969, Idlewild South 1970, and at Fillmore East 1971, and Eat a Peach at 1972. These are a few of their different albums. I don't have Eat a Peach album cover, but I might pull that up for you guys here in a bit. We'll see what goes on. But anyway, they released 12 to 19 albums, depending on how live complication projects are counted, featuring 7 gold and 4 platinum certified albums. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995, which is, as we just mentioned, and ranked 52 on the Rolling Stones 100 Greatest Artists. And we've touched on a couple of them. It would be interesting. Actually, I'm going to write that down, and we're going to go back at the end of the show here and look at the Rolling Stones 100 Greatest Artists, because we've covered several of the bands that have been on that list. And I kind of want to see where Allman Brothers rank compared to some of these other bands. Just give me a second to write this down, and we'll come back to it. Give me just a second here. Check the comments. Cheers, cheers, cheers. Cheers. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah, Mikey, I'm glad you're here, man. I wanted to bring up a point here. See, this Riffin with HB, I don't know if everybody knows how this works, but what we do, we talk about old school and underrated bands, try to bring them back to the masses. And the way I see it is, if your name isn't the Allman Brothers Band, then it's not about you. This is about the Allman Brothers Band. If I don't pay attention to the comments, it's nothing personal to nobody here in the comments. We're just focusing on the Allman Brothers here. Now, I just don't know how else to say it other than just to sit down and shut the hell up and ride this train or get the fuck off. But yeah, we're going to get back into it. So some of the awards that they received are RIAA certified, 7 gold and 4 platinum albums. So 4 platinum albums, pretty impressive, man. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. They were ranked 52 on the Stones 100. We'll get into some of that in just a minute here. Let's get into some of my own personal notes. And hopefully you guys like this better this way. I'm switching it up. I'm not reading out of Wikipedia as much. I'm just reading some of kind of the cool fun facts, and we don't have to go through every album whenever the albums are released and stuff like that. But what I have considered maybe doing is adding in a list of the albums of the band. But even in an instance like this, when you're talking about 12 to 19 albums, I'm just kind of going, Sun Over the Rainbow and Have a Good Day. You know what I'm saying? Like, just like different, I'm just naming off different album covers and stuff like that. So if you guys think that would be cool, I can do that. Or I could even possibly do a little bit of what I just did and add in some of the, the bands ranked this on Rolling Stones, or they have this many platinum records. I think stuff like that is important to cover as well, too. But by this time, the sound of rock and roll was starting to be formed. And that's what I have on my notes here, but let me elaborate on what I'm saying on that. Again, even though the band was formed in '69, started to become the sound of the '70s. And one second, let me pull up my Riffin with HB book here, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what the variations we're having in the years. And the sounds that were kind of starting to be formed right around this time. We have another, that's the Doors, or sorry, Three Doors Down, not the Doors. The Doors is '65, Marshall Tucker Band in '72, The Grateful Dead in '65. The Hollies in '62. It's a little early, but Leonard Skinner '64, kind of same deal. The Cars in '76. So these are some of the bands that really created the sound of rock and roll. And oddly enough, even though kids today might not be informed with this kind of music, which is why I'm doing this show, I think that they are being influenced by these bands because surely they've been subjected to this music as a kid by their parents and out in public at the grocery store they're hearing these bands or at just any event or whatever they go to. If they go to the beach, they're hearing these songs being played out on speakers walking down the road. So people might not claim that they know who these bands are, but they're definitely being influenced by them. And especially in the '60s and the '70s, had a great major impact on the way our society is formed today with the hippie movement. And the way I equate this is like when you think about the '70s, you think about flowers and Volkswagens and hippies and weed. It's because that they were living that life. It wasn't like they were trying to make you think of the '70s 30, 40, 50 years from now and go, oh, it's a bunch of hippies with flowers and stuff. It was the life that they were living. And that culture and that impact shaped who we are today because those people are essentially our parents, our grandparents. Um, Not even our great grandparents in a lot of instances, just our parents in most instances, right? People who were born in the '60s, '70s, '80s, and that time period. Most of us come from people like that. So I think that kind of like started to shape the sound of what rock and roll became in the '90s. It shaped the sound of the '90s. And again, this is why I have did this debate a lot with people on whenever I talk about music. And I go, the Allman Brothers were the sound of the '90s, and they go, well, they were from the '70s. Like, yeah, of course they were from the '70s. Everybody knows when they started, but I'm talking about shaping the sound, and it takes 10, 20 years sometimes for that sound to spread throughout the whole entire world for people to be like, okay, this is what represents the '90s, because if it represented the '60s and '70s, they would have had to be born, or not born, but formed in the '50s and '60s, right? Essentially, to even get that, maybe even earlier than that, because the only reason that these bands like the Allman Brothers started to get big in the '70s was because of things like radio. I mean, before then, you're starting to like bridge into the times before electricity. So the only way to get known, and some of the best musicians who ever lived on the face of this earth, mind you, have been people from the 1900s, the early 1900s, who were just guitarists on a freaking porch playing blues music or rock and roll for the first time to create these later sounds, which would later become what we know as rock and roll. Um, and even after the times of the '20s and stuff like that, they created what's called rockabilly, which is country mixed with rock and roll. It's like starting to form into what real rock and roll is. And you can think bands like Black Sabbath and um, bands like Jesus Christ, I'm blanking on the name of the band I'm trying to think of. Um, Pantera, or bands like um, Slayer and stuff like that, that really created that deep, heavy metal sound that we know is like chugging on a guitar and really using those deep vocals that formed out of country music from the South. When people came here from other countries and started playing on guitar, they were influenced by music from Ireland and Germany and France. And we blended here in America, created country music in the South, and it spread throughout the West. And that's the same reason why you get California music that's kind of like CCR. We talked about this. Those boys are from California, but yet they have a country sound to them. And it's because of the influence of the music. It comes from there. And they don't know it, but they're influenced by music from Germany and Ireland. If you ask them, they're like, oh, I don't know these bands, but yet their music is directly influenced from them. It's the same thing with kids today who are playing guitar and playing instruments, any instrument, or singing or whatever, right? They are like, I don't know the Allman Brothers band, but somebody might listen to their music and go, well, you have a heavy influence of Allman Brothers in your music. It's because it's not a coincidence. Maybe in certain circumstances they could have just discovered it on their own, but more than likely they know the Allman Brothers. Like, unless you're living under a rock, you've heard an Allman Brothers song. You might not know you have, recognize that you have, but you probably have. Cheers, everyone. Thank y'all for being here. Yep. Yep. Having a great evening, man. Thank you so much. Cheers. Um, it was I'm just gonna read my notes and then gonna explain my thoughts here. It was country, it was hippie, it was edgy rock and roll, and you know when when you're making a band, you're not thinking about, hey, I'm gonna be the Cars, and then later on when they think about us, they're gonna look at us in this style, or Metallica or Black Sabbath. These bands, like when you think about them, you think about, oh yeah, dark leather, cigarettes, like rock and roll, whiskey and shit. But that's not what they were trying to do. Again, some people are posers, especially today in today's music. Lots of people are fake and frauds. But in that time period, they were living that life. They were being those people. They were real as they come. They were living that life, and that's why we associate the music that we associate them with. The Allman Brothers were no different. They come from that time in the '60s and '70s. We talked about a lot of our bands here who have been drafted in and out of the war. I'm sure even if they weren't drafted in and out of the war, they were definitely influenced by it. And it was a crazy time. I'm sure some of our viewers here probably lived through the '60s and '70s, where they can explain more than I can that the world was, in turmoil at that time. As much as we like to play like, oh, the world's doom and gloom, in that time period, it really was doom and gloom because people were actually being sent to war from their friends they went to high school with and shit, and people inside the band, and some of them wanted to support the right, some of them didn't. It's like all being translated into their music, and that's why whenever you see the Allman Brothers band, you associate them with the hippie movement, but yet they're country, they're hippie, they're kind of edgy because of the not because of the music that they write necessarily, but because of the way they play the music. It's like starting to bridge into what we know as true rock and roll. And it's because of the band, the Allman Brothers was formed in '69, they later became the influences of bands like Black Sabbath, like Pantera, like Slayer, like all these old school heavy '80s, '90s rock bands. Cheers, cheers. Thank you all for being here. Jam band. Jam bands are for people who enjoy music, and that's why I thought that was a good way to sum that up because a lot of people they're maybe not as intrigued by jam bands. Some people obviously are annoyed by it. Everybody's going to be annoyed by something. But if people really love music and they love hearing sounds of music and they're actually intrigued by music and not just about what's bumping with a melody or what the club is playing, but they are intrigued by, wow, it's like I'm an artist or I'm a storyteller. So I want to be able to see your art or your stories to be able to go, wow, that's not what I would do with my music, but that's pretty neat. That's a unique way to do that. So if you enjoy music and you respect music and you appreciate music, what you do when you see a band like Allman Brothers on stage, you go, wow, I could see how they're like speaking to each other on stage. It's the language of music that we talk about so often on this show that you don't have to, I don't have to, as a guitarist, I don't have to look back there at the drummer and go, hey man, I'm about to hit a solo because that would ruin the whole show. All I got to do is like maybe play a fast note or something, have a conversation before stage and be like, hey man, whenever I hit this note, it's going to be about the time I'm going to go starting to go to a solo. Or maybe it's not even discussed, which is the power of the language of music, is that maybe I don't even say anything to this guy, but he knows because of the way I play and because we play together all the time, our brains are basically one. There's been several bands that we talked about that share this one brain on stage where they play music and they don't have to talk to each other to be able to know when a switch up is coming or to know whenever they're going to take a 7-minute song and drag it out to 12 minutes because they know they can hear, they can feel better than hear, they can feel it because even Beethoven couldn't fucking hear music, but he could play it because he could feel it. And that's where music is the like language of music is beyond words. It's beyond what you could say. It's I don't need to speak your language to be able to walk up and give you a handshake or to be able to feel your pain. It's because it's deeper than language. It's deeper than perception. It's like it's being able to like envelop yourself into it deeply, and that's what makes these songs so important. Ramblin' Man. Think about the lyrics and the poetry of that song, and we talked about this a little bit with other bands as well too, because the poetry is really important because these guys had to have lived that life to be able to experience these things in the end. They had to have gone through these tough times. And, to their credit, and not trying to, glorify what older people think, but people today are soft because they literally haven't lived as tough a life now as they had to in the 60s and the 70s, man. And the music is different because of it. Now people will, it's all about the melodies and the club music and stuff about people can play and get hits on the radio. But they were creating music that was theirs and unique. And if you loved it, you fucking loved it. And if you don't, then here's the fucking door. And that's the way that I love these, because that's like the rock and roll lifestyle. It's like, if you love me for who I am. And if you don't, then you don't have to listen to it. Nobody's forcing you to sit down and listen to the Allman Brothers. But regardless, it's from a different band, the Guy Prof that I covered in the thing. It's like, you're going to hear me coming either way. Even if you don't like country music, and even if you don't like rock and roll, and even if you don't like freaking the Allman Brothers bands, you're going to hear me coming. And I'm going to influence you, and I'm going to change the world around you, whether you like it or not. And that's powerful as fuck. And that's what music can do. Obviously, so many things can do that, but music has a really powerful thing where it doesn't have to bring emotion or religion or race or politics into it. It's one of the things that we mentioned in the notes that I had. Like, it's not about race for the Allman Brothers bands. It's not about ego for the Allman Brothers bands. They're like, we're here to rock and roll. We're gonna leave this. We're gonna take what we have and leave it all on the stage, and then you could pick it up after that. And if you don't, leave it for somebody else. And that's the rock and roll attitude. And they weren't as hardcore about it as some of the bands that I just mentioned, like heavy metal, hardcore stuff. And Metallica is a band that I'm probably going to end up covering here Saturday. And the point that I was going to make on that show, and I was Allman Brothers, but I want to make a point in that show that a lot of people have this commercial sellout idea of Metallica because they were so against it. They were hardcore heavy metal, like fuck the industry. Well, later on, they ended up commercializing, and people think that they sold out. But what I like to mention is the same thing that I'm going to mention here with Allman Brothers bands, is that there's so many people that you're riding down the road, and somebody next to you has an opinion of the Allman Brothers. They say, "Oh, this band's great. I love them. They're one of my favorite bands because of nostalgic reasons or whatever," right? Or somebody next to you goes, "I hate this band and I don't like them because I don't like country, and please turn this," or whatever, right? Everybody's got their own opinions. But 99.99% of those people have never picked up an instrument. They don't know what it's like. And even if they have picked up an instrument, they haven't been part of a band to understand what I've been talking about on this show. That it's hard enough for 5 people to get together and play their instruments and blend the sound perfectly, much less to do it personally. Because these people are touring together in a small bus. They're going to be arguing and fighting with each other. They're going to be like brothers and sisters and whatever they are on that bus or train or plane or whatever, right? So you have to deal with, how am I going to introduce my guitar into this guy's drumming and this guy's vocals, and how am I going to introduce my personality into this guy's personality? Because the drummer, he has this personality, and the singer has this personality, and that might not click very well at all. That might not blend very great. So these people, they understand music better than us. It's very arrogant of us to sit in the passenger seat, be a passenger seat musician, as I call them, and say, "Oh, I think this band's great," or "I think this band sucks," when you don't really understand the intricacies of music. It's like trying to talk politics if all you know is YouTube videos, or trying to talk astrophysics whenever all you know is building like model fucking Lego sets and stuff like that. Like, you're not going to understand something that you don't understand. You have to put yourself in those shoes and walk down that road. With the Allman Brothers bands, it helps you step back into the 60s and the 70s, really. Especially with the effect of psychedelics. A great band to really check out on psychedelics as well. Any of the 60s and 70s bands, because they were directly influenced by psychedelics directly. So you start to understand whenever you're in that world, or even if you just if you're riding down a long road on a long afternoon, you can hear the Allman Brothers and really appreciate, wow, man, this is like a sound that was 50 years ago to this day that still carries on. And there's lots of bands that haven't carried on. Some of them aren't warranted, and some of them are, and some of them, we still haven't discovered. Maybe they will come back later. And there's all different variations that you could think of. But the fact that the Allman Brothers are still here carrying through, and the Rolling Stones and CCR and the Cars, these bands are still coming through. This is all what we do this show about. This is what this show is about. Bringing these old school and underrated bands to the masses and trying to show everybody that, hey, this is like time traveling devices. And they are devices for connectivity, to be able to connect me, a little boy from the South, to grow up and become traveling across America and spreading the word of this music. And then I could connect with other people. Oh, I'm from Ohio and I moved here, and now I like these bands, and I can show you some new bands, and I could take my bands and show them to them. Hey, have you ever heard of Slightly Stupid? And we'll talk about Slightly Stupid, and I'll be like open up a whole door, and it becomes like a library of music, a new book that you can open up, and wow, this is a whole new story that I never even thought about. But with music and human beings in general, I mean, not to be a psychologist here, but it's like we tend to like get stuck in the same loop of things, and I do the same thing as well. So sometimes this is what part of the show is as well too, for me to discover new music with you guys. I talked about this a lot in the beginning. Like this like rekindles my love for music, because I love the Allman Brothers, and I would never just like sit down and look at them and analyze them, because I would spend too much time sitting down and looking at analyzing bands that I really enjoyed, and there's like 20 or 30 bands that I'm really close to, so the Allman Brothers wouldn't be able to fit in there. But now I'm like making my vision range widen by going, oh, I see the Allman Brothers over here. Let me really look at them, pinpoint in on this, and understand what the 60s and 70s was about. And it starts to give you a puzzle. And again, some of the bands that we covered start to do that puzzle for you, because we have the Doors here in 65. You can move on to the Marshall Tucker Band in 72. Then you can move on. The problem is we don't have any bands from the 80s really. But you could move on to the 80s with Black Sabbath or Metallica and shit like that, into the late 90s. Then you can go here to the Doors in or not the Doors rather, but Three Doors Down in 96. Then you can go from the Doors in 96 to Little Stranger in 2015. So that's how these things slowly evolve. It's like language, it's like evolution, it's like anything that evolves over time. When you start at one point, you start at a dinosaur and you get to a human being. It's like, how the hell do we get from here to here? It's like, this is a lot of time, and just music evolves really fast, because not only am I going to be able to, maybe I'm a metalhead and I play Black Sabbath or something on guitar, and my son is young and he's influenced by that music. Well, maybe I switch what I like. Maybe I get older and I'm like, you know what, I kind of like country music a little bit more now than I used to. I'm already evolving within one generation. So, and then that influences the next generation. So that generation can be playing 4, 5, 6 genres. And this is why you get bands that are like Fortunate Youth, where you cannot pin them as a reggae band, because they're not a reggae band. They're a reggae, rock, ska, punk band. And they blend all these things together because they're influences of their fathers. They played punk music whenever they were a kid. They got older, they learned how to play alternative music. Then those kids are influenced by punk and alternative, or whatever combination that you could think of. Sometimes multiple combinations. Because I would argue that obviously, probably, assuming here, there are probably less people who don't play musician, or sorry, there are less people that do play music than people who do. Like, there are more people who don't play music at all. Assuming. But that being said, that means that we're trying to be influenced by people who don't play music more than we are trying to be influenced by people who do play music. So we're trying to find that niche of these people influence me, and this is the band and style that I like. If you guys got any requests, drop them in the comments. If you guys got any questions too, by the way, drop them in the comments. If you guys want to see any bands, let me know. I have a huge list right now that I already have in my book, but I can add to it slowly. What I've been doing is I've just been jumbling them around into different spots. So if there's a band that I mentioned that we haven't gotten to, we will definitely be getting to it during the upcoming weeks. But I do know for a fact that we'll be covering Metallica on Saturday. I just wanted to have a little bit more time to watch documentaries and really get the in-depth feel of it before I gave a review on it. So let me see. Yeah, if you guys have anything, let me know. And you can always drop the comment in the video after it goes live, and I'll get to it after. If you guys are in need of supplements, by the way, let me know. Reach out to us on Mystic Journeys, mysticjourneyschurch.org, or you can get in our contact information on the Mystic Journeys Church YouTube channel. Go to our link in our bio. You can reach out to us on Instagram or Discord. If you want to reach out to me personally on Instagram or Discord, you can go to Headbuster, all lowercase, 290, hashtag 8595 on Discord, or Headbuster, all lowercase, 290 on Instagram. And that's my personal messages. That's the best way to get in touch with me. But also you can message me on my email at Shawn, SHAWN _44 at rocketmail.com. Yes, Phillips. I have done Grateful Dead, but it's interesting you mentioned that because it's one of the bands that I thought maybe I would come back and revisit again because there's so much depth to their stories and so much intricacies and so much cool stories about the band that I thought I might come back and redo it. And they're not the only ones I've thought about coming back and redoing. There's a couple I've already done that I think I'm gonna come back and redo again. I know it sounds like so convoluted, but sometimes there's just more than you can cover in about 20, 30, 40 minutes of a show, and I don't really like to make them hour-long shows. Um, but yeah, it's a great point. I have covered the Grateful Dead. It's a couple episodes back. Just I think you should be able to search Mystic Journeys, Grateful Dead, Riffin with HB, and find it. If not, you should just be able to scroll down a couple and find it. One second, let me grab my book and then maybe I could tell you about how far back it was. Grateful Dead was like one of the first bands that I covered, so it's going to be one of the first episodes. Yeah, it was a pretty good episode. It was just after the passing of Bob Weir, so we did an episode in honor of him and honoring Bob Weir and talked about the whole band. But I'd like to come back and maybe do a little bit more with them specifically. So maybe we'll do that. Before we get out of here, one more thing. I want to go check out the Rolling Stones Top 100, and let's just fuck around and see what's going on with the Top 100. Top 100 artists of all time on Rolling Stone. Let's see what this list is. So, just to get some clarification out of the way, the 100 Greatest Artists of All Time was a special issue published by Rolling Stone in two parts in 2004 and 2005, and it was later updated in 2011. The list presented was compiled based on input from musicians, writers, industry figures, and is focused on the rock and roll era specifically. So it's not going to be perfect here because there's everybody's influence and impact into this thing. So if somebody gets offended that the Beatles are before or after the Allman Brothers, we can't get upset here. It's a lot of like it's personal opinion into this stuff a lot. But the publication features comments that several musicians wrote about their colleagues, including Elvis Costello on the Beatles, Janet Jackson on Tina Turner, and others. So it's like bands commenting on other bands. And since the publication, the list has been frequently cited by many specialized and generalized publications. So, all right. Where's the actual list here? Number 100 is the Talking Heads. Let's start at the other end because we don't want to go through this whole thing, but we'll kind of go along the way here. Leonard Skinner's 95. 9 Inch Nails, baby, 94. We're starting at the other end. We're just kind of going through though. Let me scroll down to the bottom. Wow, it's impressive. 9 Inch Nails is 95. It makes you wonder what's on top. Also, what I talk about a lot in the show as well too. You think about the bands that I can name off the top of my head. I can name 100 bands off the back of my hand. When our parents were younger in the 60s and 70s, it was a lot harder to name that many bands. Oh, I think I crashed the website. I think I crashed it. The Velvet Underground is 19. Marvin Gaye on number 18. Buddy Waters, baby, on number 17. What's up? See, this makes me feel happy because this means that people are doing exactly what I was just saying and appreciating where music comes from. Sam Cooke on 16. Badass. Stevie Wonder Baby on number 15. Led Zeppelin on 14. Holy crap, that's surprising. Buddy Holly, surprisingly, on number 13. Interesting. We'll have to cover Buddy Holly one day. Oh, this website's so janky. Let's see if I can find a better website than this. It's like an actual Rolling Stones website, but for some reason it's not giving it to me right. Oh my goodness gracious. This is kind of. This is. I was just giving you guys this whole talk about if the Beatles beat. Well, Beatles beat everybody. So if your heart breaks your heart like mine, then it probably. It's like I said. It's like. God, this is the difficulty that I have. That people are influences. Like, I think we're giving people the influence that they don't deserve necessarily. But the Beatles is number 1. Bob Dylan is number 2. Elvis Presley is number 3. The Rolling Stones is number 4, oddly enough. Chuck Berry is on number 5. Jimi Hendrix at number 6. That one I would think is pretty accurate. James Brown at number 7. That's pretty accurate. Little Richard at number 8. It's pretty accurate. Aretha Franklin at number 9, surprisingly. Ray Charles at number 10. Some of these I think are pretty close, but to say that Bob Dylan at number 2 is the second greatest rock and roll band out of all these bands. I mean, 9 Inch Nails was like, what, 96? It's kind of crazy. Bob Marley at number 11, The Beach Boys at 12, Buddy Holly 13, Led Zeppelin, Stevie Wonder, Sam Cooke, Muddy Waters, as we mentioned, Nirvana at 30, Michael Jackson at 35, Donna, David, Bowie, Run DMC, Elton John. And I was like how it's weird. They mentioned that it's about rock and roll, but yet they have Jay-Z on here. Run DMC, Madonna. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not rock and roll. It's a little weird. This list is a little convoluted. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's a little misconstrued. But maybe we'll check it out some more for some of these other bands. Like I said, there's been several bands that we've already touched on that were on that list. The Grateful Dead being one of them for sure. Forget what the Grateful Dead's ranking was on that list. We'll get back to them though. We'll come loop back around on them. Maybe in a couple weeks. Let me see here though. The Grateful Dead ranked number 57. So right there behind the Allman Brothers. Yeah, great list, man. Yep, some of the greatest bands ever. It's surprising to think that 9 Inch Nails is on there, because 9 Inch Nails is a band that formed in, what, the 80s? Late 80s? I guess in 88? Yeah. Yep, it was formed in 88, 1988. Yep. One of the greatest bands. I love 9 Inch Nails. Really an underrated band. An old school and underrated band, if you think about it. I don't think I've done an old school and underrated band. Most of the old school bands I've covered is like CCR. Like, everybody knows who Creedence Clearwater Revival is. Even if they don't know. Like, if you know music, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my whole point. Even if you don't know who they are, they've definitely been influenced by them. 9 Inch Nails is really good music because it's that edgy it's like the sound of underground, really. Like industrial music. Really melodic though. Super great techno. Has that techno sound to it? They have so many good songs. Nirvana was like what, 30 or something like that? That's pretty good. You watched a documentary about Bob Dylan the other day. Was it any good? Bob Dylan's not one of my favorite musicians, but I think he deserves a lot of respect. But to say he's number 3 of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, I mean, it's given a lot of credit to the idea of Bob Dylan and not the musician Bob Dylan. Like if Bob Dylan was in a guitar, like in a bar playing guitar against 20 other people, like 40 years ago, would he make it to the top three? Would he? It's a great question. I watched a Tom Petty documentary about a year ago at this point, maybe a little over. It was really impressive, and it talked a lot about the in the industry, about how they fucked him over. Like this was at a time where bands were just being signed to these record labels, and the record labels were obviously later fucking them, which we know now. But they didn't know that then. They were just like, "Holy crap, $10,000, sign me up," and then they would run off and get fucked in the end by the industry's taking record labels taking 90% of their money or whatever it is, right? Stupid amounts of money while they're doing all the hard work. That's why I've commented on a couple independent record label artists now that top in the charts, dude. Prof is a prime example of that. If you don't know Prof, he's the guy I was talking about. You're going to hear him coming either way. That's his quote. And that's how I love that. You're going to hear him. If you don't know him now, you will know him. And he's going to be one of the top artists, and he's not signed to any record label that you guys know of. Independent. Did that shit completely on his back. And that's what I loved about him talking about that shit at his concert. He was saying that, he's independent as a record label artist as he is, and as hard and as long as the road that he walked on his own, he's still, even, it's egotistical shit for him to say that he made it on his own. Even he couldn't say that. Buck Cherry, it's a good band. That's a good band. Maybe we'll cover them later on, for sure. They got that rock and roll country sound. I used to like them a lot when I was younger. There's a lot of bands I listened to when I was younger that I don't necessarily anymore. For a while, I went through like a heavy metal phase. I was listening to Slipknot and Of Mice and Men and shit like that for a little while. When I first got into music, it was some of the bands I've already covered, like Leonard Skinner and Led Zeppelin, Nirvana, Dirty Heads, stuff like that. It's like some of the first music I really liked and enjoyed as a kid. That a lot of it I still listen to, some of it I don't. I kind of felt like that with the Three Doors Down. I'm like, damn, this is like a good band I used to listen to as a kid. I need to bring this shit back. But I think that we start to like attach not only our personal emotions to it, obviously, but like the time of like, that's early 2000s, so that's the Three Doors Down. And sometimes I just like tend to lean away from that kind of stuff. But it ends up doing me injustice in the end. Whenever I listen to that shit, I'm like, damn, this shit's good, dude. It's like it still came out. Like if Three Doors Down was released today, people would be all over it. That's how I love the hate of Nickelback. It's like one of the famous things in the music industry is like, and just amongst music fans in general, like you either love Nickelback or you hate them. But it's like if Nickelback came out today, everybody would be rocking that shit. Fucking everybody would be playing it, just like how they were whenever the fucking early thousands came and it was on the radio anyway. Yeah, no doubt. Heck yeah. Thank y'all for joining in. I think we're gonna wrap this thing up, make up for quite a while. Yeah, let me know if you want to see anything else. I think we've gone through everything here. Yeah. Here's another album cover for you guys real fast. So that's just pretty cool. Where it all begins. The Allman Brothers got a little crazy psychedelic mushroom background. Super hippie. Another shot of the boys sitting in front of fucking too many fucking amps and equipment and shit. Pouring all over the world, making shit happen. Cool. Gonna get out of here, guys. Thank y'all for joining Riffin with HB, old school and underrated bands, bringing them to the masses, and we're gonna see you guys on. Actually, we'll see you tomorrow for start of the Fifth Agreement on Mystic Journeys, and then we'll catch you guys on Saturday. We'll do Metallica. Great band. I'm excited about this. Oh gosh, I gotta pull myself up. Oh my gosh. But anyway, thank you guys for being here. You guys have a great night, and catch you guys tomorrow. Same time, 9 p.m. EST. Bye, everyone. Have a great night.